everybody? Welcome back to Tavian's World of Reptiles. I hope you guys are all doing well and taking care of yourselves. So, today has been a pretty relaxed day for me here. I have fed all of the snakes today, with the exception of Artemis. I am not sure I want to feed Artemis just yet. It is definitely time for Artemis to eat, but I am hesitant to do so because I don't want to cause any more unnecessary damage to her already funky up mouth right now. So I'm hesitant to feed her until I'm sure that that's cleared up a bit more and the swelling goes down and it's not looking so bad. But everybody else has eaten and they're all nice and full. Hence the reason I do not have any snakes on me at this current time. Lestat, my gopher snake, bull snake, has finally eaten. He was not taking to the rats the last couple of feedings, or since I've actually switched him over to rats. And so I was trying to figure out what I could do without switching him back to mice just yet. And I actually ended up getting some crab, and I decided to just like test it, and I just kind of scented the rat with a little bit of crab, and he ate, so that was nice. So I think for future feedings, until I get him regularly eating on mice, I might have to get some like tuna or something, or I mean rats, some tuna or something to keep him interested in eating until I can get him fully converted over to rats. And if it doesn't happen, then I'll just stick with mice and go from there, but that's my goal. So yeah, I just want to share that a little bit with you guys. Also, I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it was an interview with a woman. I can't remember what her name is right now, but she is a snake behavioral specialist, and I will put the link to that later when I get it and put it in the description. But essentially, she was talking about something, and she put a name to something that I've heard about. And I know that people often do this with multiple different reptiles and animals, actually, but I never actually had heard a name put to it. And so when she put a name to it and was explaining what it was, I was like, well, there it is. That's it. That's perfect. That's the name for it. And I really want to share that with people. And so I am going to talk to you guys about a little bit about that, because I think it's something that should be avoided. And if not everybody really knows about it, then it can't be avoided. And if I didn't know about it, I'm sure there are other people who might not know exactly what this is. So what I'm talking about is flooding. And flooding is something that is a term that is used in multiple different animal communities. It is not solely for reptiles. And before I get too deep into what flooding is exactly, I want to touch on a little bit about animal behavior around when it comes to reptiles in particular, or any animal. In fact, when animals are subjected to negative stimulus, they tend to have a very specific defense mechanisms. If they are finding themselves being handled, or if they hear a noise or something that scares them, that makes them feel unsafe, they will either they'll flee, or they'll attack, or they'll freeze. And it's just a natural defense that all animals have. And any living creature, doesn't even have to be a physical reaction, but a defense. All living things have a defense to something that is negatively stimulating them. And so, that being said, when we think about flooding, flooding is essentially forcing our animals to endure long amounts of exposure to negative stimulus. So essentially, if we're thinking about a snake, say you get a snake that has come to you and is not used to being handling. It is very, it seems very handoff. It's very jumpy. It is very scared. It is striking a lot. It is huffing a lot, and is just not used to being handled. Some people believe that overwhelming that snake with lots of handling until the snake calms down, until the snake is just relaxed and chill, is the way to go. Like, you have a snake and it's huffy and it's freaking out, they believe that you have to completely ignore that, and you have to just get in there, you have to handle it through this stressful period. The whole time you're handling it, this snake is trying to get away. It is huffing, it is striking, it is screaming, not screaming, but essentially just like showing all sorts of aggravated behavior to what you're doing. And instead of letting the snake relax and letting it go until it's in a better setting, and getting to know that snake on a smoother, calmer, relaxed setting. People just overwhelm the snake with this negative stimulus, and essentially the whole point is that eventually the snake will just stop fighting and the snake will just calm down, and it'll just be a puppy dog tame snake with just constant exposure to this. And this is where things become a problem, because it doesn't really help your snake learn to trust you. In fact, what you've done is just like force your snake into submission. Your snake's just given up. And a lot of times people talk about this with iguanas, because iguanas are really hard to tame. And for instance, people who have iguanas will use this method where they will get an iguana and they will wrap it up in a towel once they've like caught this wild, not wanting to be handled creature, and they wrap it in a towel and they hold it until it stops struggling. And they'll do this, and they'll force this animal to stay in these conditions until it eventually just stops running, stops fighting, and stops putting up any type of fuss. And they think that they've tamed this animal, when in reality, all they've done is beaten the animal. They've broken this animal. They forced the animal to give up and to quit, because it doesn't matter what they do, this mean human is going to not listen to them. This untrustworthy creature is not something that they can fight, and they've given up. And we don't ever want our animals to feel like that. Yes, there are times where we do need to handle our animals. Like if we need to get them to a vet, we need to inspect them, make sure that they're healthy. We do need to get in there and handle our animals sometimes. But if you've got a snake that is has extremely high anxiety, you don't want to force yourself on those type of animals, because you're not going to gain a trusting relationship with this animal. You're just going to end up breaking the animal, and they're just going to have this underlining fear of you at all times, and essentially they just got to do what you want, or feel that you're going to hurt them. I mean, you don't want your snake or any of your animals to feel that way towards you. So we want to avoid flooding our snakes, because when we flood our snakes, we teach our snakes to have learned helplessness. And essentially, it's like what I just said, is that they just know that it doesn't matter what they do, it is pointless, because they can't win, and they are just going to give in and be broken creatures, instead of having a relaxed and calm and peaceful and trusting relationship with your animal. You now have an animal who's just too afraid to even fight anymore, because it knows it doesn't have a chance. So, and then, when you have snakes, they're going to grow up to be larger. That can be problematic, because you might have a snake that seems broken, but if you don't have trust with that snake, you have a lot higher of a chance of having that very large snake snap back and have a out of nowhere bite and strike towards you, and putting you in danger, because you think that you've got a calmer snake than you really do, when in fact what you've had is a broken snake who's finally gotten over it and is going to attack you. Now, this is not to say that a snake that actually trusts you isn't likely to come back and bite you every once in a while, but you have a much higher chance when you've got a snake that's just been broken, as opposed to having gained trust with. So I don't know. I just thought that was something that I wanted to talk with you guys about and share and hear what you guys have to say about it, because I personally just really love to have a really trusting and calm and relaxed relationship with my snakes. I usually will instead of forcing them to come out, I will open the doors and I make it an option for them to come out. And most of them will at some point come out, and some won't. Like Artemis is not one that comes out, and I don't like to force her out. I'm having to do so a lot more lately, because I have to give her shots every couple of days. But for the most part, I hardly ever force her out. Does that mean she doesn't get into any interaction with me? No, I'll open her doors, I'll reach in, and I'll pet her, but I'm not forcing her out. Because when I do have to force her out, I can easily hear and feel her agitation, and I try to make it as quick of a process as I possibly can. Because once she's out, she's fine, but it's the process of getting her out that is really agitating for her. So I really try to avoid it as much as possible. And when I do have to, I hectic about the process, and I make sure I can get in and get her out as quickly and as easily as possible without her feeling the need to flail before she has a chance to try to really get away, and then causing the interaction to be a lot more hectic than it needed to be. If I can just get in, pull her out, and then put her down so that she's calm and relaxed again. Like, I just don't like to have like rough and high anxious interactions with my snakes, and you should never want to have that with your snakes or your reptiles or whatever it is that you're keeping. So it's just something to think about. We don't want to force ourselves on our animals. We want our animals to learn how to trust us. So when you first get your animal, I know you want to put yourself all up in their space. You want to hold them a lot and all that, especially if they're really aggressive. You think it's just important for you to get in there and handle them as much as possible right away. And that's not necessarily the case. And yes, it is important to interact with your snake as much as possible, especially if they're extremely agitated in the beginning. But if you have one that is extremely agitated, specifically for when you're handling them, then just take it one step at a time. Just start off with just opening the doors and being in its presence. Just start off with keeping them in maybe an active space where they're regularly seeing you, and take really tiny steps to the point where you can actually have a safe, calm, and relaxing handling experience with your snake, instead of you just forcing yourself on your snakes constantly for long periods of time until they finally just break and give in, and you are under the misinterpretation that you've got a calm puppy dog snake who loves and trusts you, when you've really just gotten a broken animal. So I don't want to keep repeating myself. That's all I really have to say about it. I want to hear your thoughts on this subject. Drop a comment below. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you are a new person to my channel, hit that subscribe button so you can see some more videos. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for watching yet another one of my videos. You guys take care, love yourselves, love your loved ones, love your reptiles, and you guys keep spreading those herps.